The colony market was alive with sound and color, but in one shadowed corner stood silence. People moved fast, trading fruit, metals, and strange fabrics, but none of them noticed the thin figure who stood by the cracked wall. Her skin was pale, blue, her eyes too large and her clothes nothing but torn fabric that barely covered her. She was not human, yet she was not dangerous, only desperate. Her hands shook as she stepped forward, her voice breaking as she spoke. "Please, food," she whispered, her accent heavy, her words slow. "I will give myself. In return." The words cut through the noise like a blade. The crowd turned, shocked, their chatter dying at once. A few gasped, a few laughed harshly, but most looked away, pretending not to hear. The market had seen beggars before, but this was different. This was raw hunger dressed as sacrifice. Among the crowd stood a soldier, tall, dark hair, a scar along his jaw. He wore the uniform of Earth Command, his rifle slung across his back. His name was Daniel, and though he had seen war and blood, something about this moment froze him. He had been trained to see aliens as either allies or threats, never as broken souls asking for mercy. The alien woman dropped to her knees, her ribs showing through her skin. Her hands reached out as if begging the ground itself. "I have nothing," she whispered. "I am nothing, but my body is still here. Take it. Only give me bread." No one moved. No one stepped forward. The market was busy again, but people avoided her as if she carried a disease. Her words clung to the air like smoke, refusing to vanish. Daniel felt his throat tighten. He could walk away like the others. He could report her, like the rules said. Or he could step into the fire. He took one step forward, and her eyes snapped to him, wide and filled with fear for a moment. She thought he would strike her, that he would drag her away like so many had done before, but his voice was calm, low, steady. "Stand up," he said. "I will not take you." Her body trembled, not from cold, but from confusion. "You will not take," she repeated as if the idea itself was impossible. She could not believe it. No one gave without taking. No one. Daniel reached into his pack, pulled out a ration bar. He broke it in half, holding one piece out to her. The woman stared at it, as if it were treasure, her hands shaking violently. Slowly, carefully, she took it, and when she bit into it, tears ran down her face. She chewed as if each piece was the most precious thing she had ever tasted. Daniel watched, silent, but his eyes sharp. This was not normal hunger. This was survival hunger, the kind that came only after weeks of emptiness. He studied her, noticing the way her eyes kept darting to the alleys, the way her body leaned slightly toward the shadows, as if someone else was waiting there, someone she protected. The market crowd had already forgotten, but Daniel could not. Something told him this was not just a starving stranger. This was the beginning of something larger. His training screamed at him to leave, but his heart whispered to stay. When she finally swallowed the last bite, she lowered her head to the ground. Her voice was hoarse, broken. "You gave without price," she whispered. "Why, human?" Daniel did not answer. Not yet. Instead, he scanned the alley she had been glancing at. And there, barely visible, two small eyes shone from the shadows, wide, frightened, and hungry. He froze, realization striking like lightning. She was not asking for herself. She was asking for someone else. The soldier's grip tightened on his pack. This was no simple act of charity, no passing kindness. This was a choice that could change everything. Because in that dark alley, hidden from the world, a child waited, and the child was not human. The crowd moved on, blind to the truth, but Daniel knew he could not. The question burned in his chest, louder than the market noise, heavier than the rules of command. Would he walk away like the others? Or would he step deeper into the shadows, to discover why one alien woman was willing to trade herself for bread, and what secret she tried so desperately to protect? The answer would change, not only her fate but his own. And perhaps the fate of both their worlds. Daniel stood still for a long moment, the weight of his decision pressing down on his chest like heavy armor. The woman's hand still trembled as she held the empty wrapper, her lips pressed against it as though hoping to draw more taste from the crumbs. Her eyes glistened with both shame and gratitude, and yet her glance kept returning to that alley, where the faint gleam of another pair of eyes had betrayed her secret. Daniel's instincts as a soldier screamed, "Report it." It was protocol. Aliens hiding inside human-controlled colonies were not to be trusted. They could be spies, thieves, or worse. But his heart whispered louder. This is not a trap. This is survival. He stepped closer, lowering his voice so no one else in the market could hear. "Who is in there?" he asked softly, nodding toward the shadowed alley. The woman flinched, her thin shoulders curling inward as if expecting a blow. Her lips parted, but no sound came out, only a soft gasp of fear. Finally, her words broke free. My grandchild." The word hung in the air like a fragile thread. Daniel's eyes widened, and he crouched slightly, lowering himself to her level. "You have a child with you?" he asked. She shook her head quickly, correcting him. "Not mine, not born of me, but my blood, my son's son. He is small, he is hungry. I cannot lose him." Her voice cracked and she pressed her hands against her face as though hiding her shame. Daniel looked toward the alley again, and the child stepped forward just a little. A tiny figure, no more than 5 or 6 years old, with the same pale blue skin, the same hollow cheeks, and the same trembling. His eyes were too big for his face, wide with fear but also filled with curiosity. Daniel's chest tightened. This was no soldier, no spy, only a child, a starving child who had learned to hide in the shadows instead of playing in the light. The grandmother lowered her head again, her voice shaking. "I offered myself so he may eat, I thought. I thought a human might agree. Better me than him. Better I am lost than he dies." The words struck Daniel harder than any bullet. He had seen mothers shield children on battlefields, had watched fathers throw themselves into fire for their families. But never had he seen such raw surrender, such quiet despair. For a long moment, Daniel said nothing. Then, slowly, he reached into his pack again and pulled out a second ration bar. He crouched lower, holding it out toward the child. The boy froze, his small hands clutching the wall, eyes flicking to his grandmother for guidance. She shook her head slightly, terrified of what this meant, but Daniel gave her a calm look. "I will not harm him," he said firmly. "Take it, little one, it's for you." The boy's bare feet scraped against the stone as he shuffled closer. His tiny hands reached out, hesitated, then snatched the food and pulled it back into the shadows. He tore the bar open with his teeth, devouring it with the hunger of someone who had gone days without more than scraps. Tears rolled down his dirty cheeks as he ate, silent but desperate. The grandmother collapsed forward, sobbing quietly. "You do not understand," she whispered. "No one gives without taking. No one. You must want something. Tell me what you want. I will give it. But do not hurt him." Daniel's jaw tightened. He could feel the stares of the market, though no one truly watched anymore. Still, he knew what would happen if Command discovered this. Aliens hiding near a supply hub caught stealing food or taking rations. Punishment was swift and merciless. But he looked at the child, at the boy's thin arms and sunken eyes. He remembered his own younger brother back on Earth, who had died of fever before medicine arrived. He remembered the helplessness, the feeling that he would trade anything, his body, his soul, just to save him. And in this alien grandmother's eyes, he saw the same pain. Daniel placed his hand gently on her shoulder. "I don't want your body," he said quietly. "I don't want anything from you, except this. Promise me you'll keep the boy safe no matter what." Her breath caught, her eyes wide as if such words were impossible. You give, only give," she whispered, disbelief trembling in every syllable. Daniel nodded, standing tall again, his voice firm. "Yes, because someone has to." But deep in his chest he knew this was only the beginning. Already he had broken rules. Already he had chosen heart over duty. And he knew command would not forgive that. He also knew the market crowd would talk. Rumors spread faster than fire in a dry forest. Soon someone would tell the wrong officer. And then both the woman and the child would be in chains. Daniel exhaled slowly, his decision already made. If he walked away now, they would die. If he stayed, he might lose everything, his rank, his freedom, even his life. But as he watched the boy's small hands clutching the ration bar, he realized the truth. He could live with punishment, but he could not live with walking away. The grandmother whispered one more time, her voice breaking. "Why, human, why would you risk yourself for us?" Daniel's eyes softened, his answer simple. "Because I see you," he said. "Not as alien, not as enemy, only as family, even if you don't believe it yet." The market noise swelled around them again, the world moving forward as if nothing had changed. But everything had changed, because one soldier had chosen hope instead of hunger, and that choice would ripple far beyond a single act of kindness. The night came slowly over the colony, lights flickering across the human outpost as the market emptied. Shadows stretched long between the steel walls, and most traders packed up their goods. But Daniel did not leave. He followed the alien woman and her grandchild at a distance, his hand close to his rifle, though his heart told him he would not need it. The woman walked with weak steps, her thin frame swaying as if the day's weight pressed too heavy on her. The child clutched her hand tightly, his small feet moving fast to keep up, his other hand holding the half-ration bar he had saved. Daniel stayed far enough not to frighten them, but close enough to step in if danger came. They led him through broken alleys where the colony lights grew dim, past the outer edge where humans rarely bothered to patrol. At last they slipped into an abandoned storage hut, its walls cracked and its roof patched with metal scraps. Daniel hesitated, then pushed the door open after them. The woman spun around, fear flashing in her eyes. "You should not follow," she whispered harshly. "If they see you here, you will be punished and we will be taken." Daniel shook his head, stepping inside. "If I walk away, you'll starve before the week is over," he said, his voice low but steady. "I need to know why you're here, why you risk so much to stay hidden." The child peered at him from behind her legs, his wide eyes shimmering in the faint light. Daniel crouched down, giving him a soft smile. But the boy only pressed closer to his grandmother. It was then Daniel noticed something strange. On the boy's neck, faint glowing, lines shimmered under his skin like threads of light pulsing gently. Daniel frowned, his soldier's instincts sharpening. "What is that?" he asked quietly, pointing toward the boy's neck. The woman stiffened, her hands pulling the boy back. "You saw nothing," she said quickly, her voice breaking with panic. "You must not speak of it, not to anyone." Daniel's voice hardened, but not unkindly. "Tell me what it means if I'm to help you. I need the truth." Her shoulders trembled, her lips pressing tight, and for a long moment she said nothing. Finally, her voice cracked. "He is not like the others of my kind. The light inside him is forbidden." Daniel blinked, trying to understand. "Forbidden," he repeated. "You mean dangerous?" She shook her head violently. "No, not dangerous. Only different. His father, my son, was taken because of it. They said no child should be born with the mark. They said it would bring ruin." Her tears shimmered as she looked down at the boy. I ran with him. I hid. And for years I have given everything so that he may live. But we cannot hide forever." The boy tugged gently on her arm, his small voice rising for the first time. "Grandmother, I am not bad, am I?" Her heart broke at the question, her arms wrapping around him tight. "No, child, never bad. You're the only good left in me." Daniel's chest ached at the sight. The glowing mark was not danger. It was a symbol, perhaps of mutation, perhaps of power. But to Daniel it was only proof that the boy was special. He had seen humans destroy what they feared before, and now he understood why she had offered herself in the market, not for survival alone, but for protection, to keep the boy from being discovered. Daniel rose to his feet, pacing the small room. You know, if Command learns about this, they'll come for him, he said, his voice heavy. They won't care what he is or isn't. They'll see a threat, and threats get erased. The woman's head lowered, silent tears sliding down her cheeks. I know, she whispered. That is why I begged. That is why I gave myself. Better my shame than his death. Daniel looked at the boy again, at the glow under his skin, faint, but steady. Like a heartbeat of light, something stirred in him, something more than pity, more than duty. It was resolve. I won't let them take him, Daniel said suddenly, his voice firm. Both the woman and child looked up in shock. You cannot fight your own kind, she whispered. They will strip you of everything. They will call you traitor. Daniel's eyes hardened. I've been called worse, he said, but I won't stand by while a child is hunted for being born different. The boy stepped out slowly from behind his grandmother, his glowing eyes fixed on Daniel. Human soldier, he said softly. Why help us? We are not your people. Daniel crouched low, looking the boy straight in the eyes. Because once, someone told me family isn't just blood, it's who you choose to protect. The child's lips quivered, his small hand reaching out. Daniel took it gently, feeling the faint warmth of that strange light beneath his skin, and in that touch a bond was formed, quiet but unbreakable. Outside, the colony lights dimmed, the hum of patrol drones sweeping the streets. The night carried danger in every shadow, but inside the broken hut, something stronger than fear had begun. Hope, fragile but alive. Daniel knew he had crossed a line, one he could never step back from. The grandmother knew too, but in her eyes now burned a flicker of trust, and the boy holding the human soldier's hand smiled for the first time. It was small, but it was enough to tell Daniel one thing. Whatever storm was coming, whatever punishment or battle, he would not walk away, not now, not ever. The morning sun rose over the colony with a harsh glow, painting the steel walls in fire and dust. The market filled again with noise and movement, but Daniel was not there. Instead, he stood outside the abandoned hut, keeping watch like a silent guard, his rifle slung across his shoulder, his eyes sharp with worry. Inside, the grandmother fed her grandchild the last crumbs of the ration bar, every bite stretched as if it were treasure. The boy licked his fingers, the faint glow under his skin pulsing softly in the dim light. Daniel had not slept. He knew too well what was coming. Command would soon notice the missing food. The patrols would ask questions and the market whispers would spread. Mercy had a price and Daniel was about to pay it. The grandmother stepped outside quietly, her thin form silhouetted against the rising light. You should not stay, she said softly. If they find you with us, they will punish you. Daniel's jaw tightened, his gaze fixed on the distant patrol drones circling the colony walls. They will punish you anyway, he said, with or without me, but I won't let them touch the boy. Her eyes shone with a mix of gratitude and fear. You cannot fight the whole colony, human soldier, she whispered. Daniel turned to her, his voice firm. Maybe not the whole colony, but I can stand between you and them. That's enough. A sound broke the morning air, the metallic stomp of boots against stone. Daniel's eyes snapped to the street. A patrol of 3 soldiers marched toward the hut, their armor gleaming, their rifles ready. Daniel cursed under his breath. He had hoped for more time. The soldiers stopped in front of him, their leader eyeing him with suspicion. Sergeant Daniel Carter, the man said. Why are you stationed here? This sector is not on your patrol route. Daniel kept his posture straight, calm but alert. Routine check, he lied smoothly. Some suspicious movement was reported. I came. To confirm, the leader narrowed his eyes, glancing at the broken hut behind Daniel. We've had reports of alien beggars in the market yesterday, one matching that hut's direction, he said coldly. Did you see anything? Daniel's heart hammered in his chest. Inside, The boy's glow might be visible if the soldiers looked too closely. One slip and all was lost. He forced his voice steady. "Nothing here," he said. "I'll handle the search, you can move along." The leader frowned, stepping closer. "That's not protocol, Carter," he said sharply. "We'll search the building ourselves." Daniel shifted, blocking the entrance, his body tense like a coiled spring. "You won't," he said firmly, his tone low but commanding. For a moment, silence hung heavy in the air, the two soldiers behind the leader, raising their brows in surprise. The leader's eyes darkened, suspicion turning to hostility. "Move aside, Sergeant, that's an order." Daniel's hand twitched near his rifle, but he didn't draw it. He stared straight into the leader's eyes. "I said, you won't search this place." The tension crackled like static. The other soldiers shifted uneasily, unsure whether to intervene. Daniel knew he was crossing a line that could not be erased. Finally, the leader sneered. "You've grown soft, Carter. Maybe you've forgotten your loyalty, but command hasn't forgotten theirs." He gestured to his men. "Mark this hut. Report it to command. We'll be back with clearance to burn it down if needed." They turned sharply, boots echoing as they marched away, leaving Daniel standing rigid, his fists clenched. The grandmother stepped out from the doorway, her face pale with terror. "You stopped them, but they will return," she whispered. Daniel nodded grimly. "I know, and next time they won't be 3 soldiers, they'll come with fire and chains." The boy peeked out behind her, his glowing skin faint in the sunlight, his small voice trembling. "Will they kill us?" he asked. Daniel crouched down, placing a firm hand on his shoulder. "Not while I'm alive," he said, his voice steady. The boy's eyes shimmered, a mixture of fear and trust. Daniel rose again, his mind racing. He had hours, maybe less, before command moved. He needed a plan, a way to move them out. But where? The colony was surrounded by desert and jagged cliffs, no place to hide without supplies. And yet he knew staying meant death. The grandmother stepped closer, her voice soft, almost pleading. "You do not have to do this, human soldier. You could. Leave us now, no one would blame you." Daniel looked at her, his eyes burning with resolve. "I would blame me," he said, "and that's enough." Her breath caught, tears sliding silently down her cheeks. No one had ever chosen them before. No one had stood for them. She bowed her head, her voice trembling. "Then may the stars protect you, because you are one of us now." Daniel exhaled slowly, gripping his rifle. The price of mercy was heavy, but he had already paid the first coin. There was no turning back, no safe road left, only forward. As the colony bells rang in the distance, signaling the morning patrol change, Daniel knew the storm was coming. The soldiers would return, not with questions, but with orders to erase, and when they did, he would stand in their way, even if it cost him everything. The day stretched heavy with silence, the kind that settles before a storm. Daniel kept his rifle across his lap, sitting at the entrance of the broken hut, his eyes scanning every corner of the colony streets. The grandmother and her grandchild stayed inside, quiet as shadows too, afraid even to whisper. Word had already spread. He could feel it in the way people avoided his gaze as they walked past. A human soldier protecting aliens. Rumor was louder than truth, and soon command would come with orders he could not obey. But what Daniel did not know was that danger was not only within the colony walls, it was approaching from outside. At dusk, the colony gates trembled under the weight of pounding fists. Guards shouted, alarms rang, and the gates rattled again. Stronger this time, Daniel leapt to his feet, rifle ready, his body tense. From the shadows of the walls, he saw them. Figures cloaked in black, taller than humans, their eyes glowing red. Like burning coals, they were not traitors, not beggars, not refugees, they were hunters, and they had come for the boy. The grandmother's cry broke the silence as she clutched her grandchild tight. "They have found us," she whispered. Her voice shaking with dread, Daniel rushed inside, his heart hammering. "Who are they?" he demanded. Her face turned pale. "The ones who marked him forbidden. They will not rest until he is gone. They fear his light." The boy trembled, the glow under his skin flickering brighter as if responding to the danger outside. Daniel gritted his teeth. "They'll have," to go through me first. The colony guards tried to hold the gate, but the hunters slammed again, their strange weapons crackling with energy. Sparks burst across the steel doors, screams rising as humans realized these were no ordinary raiders. Daniel knew the guards could not hold them for long, and when the gate fell, the hunters would head straight for the hut. He turned to the woman, his voice sharp with urgency. "Take the boy to the back, keep him hidden, do not come out unless I call." She hesitated, fear in her eyes. "You cannot fight them alone," she whispered. Daniel loaded his rifle, his jaw set like stone. "I don't need to win, I just need to make them bleed long enough for you to escape." The grandmother pulled the child back, tears running down her face. The boy's small voice rose, trembling. "Don't die, human soldier." Daniel gave him a faint smile, though his heart ached at the words. "I'll do my best," he said. The ground shook as the gates finally gave way. Metal, tearing, guards scattering like leaves in the wind. The hunters stormed inside, their cloaks flowing, their eyes burning with merciless hunger. The colony erupted in chaos, traitors running, soldiers shouting, alarms screaming. But through it all, Daniel moved forward, steady, unshaken, his rifle raised. The first hunter spotted him, its mouth curling into a sneer. It raised its weapon. A blade of glowing red light. Daniel fired, the crack of his rifle splitting the air. The shot struck the hunter's chest, knocking it back but not down. It roared, rushing toward him. Daniel stood his ground, firing again, sparks bursting from the creature's armor. Behind him, the grandmother whispered prayers in a tongue Daniel did not know, holding the boy close. The glow in the boy's body grew brighter, pulsing faster. His small hands clenched, his eyes wide with fear. The light inside him seemed to answer the chaos outside, as though alive. Daniel fought hard, ducking as a hunter's blade sliced past his shoulder, the heat searing his skin. He rolled, fired upward, the bullet tearing through the hunter's throat. The creature dropped with a heavy thud, but two more replaced it. Their red eyes locked on him. The colony soldiers tried to join the fight, but their fear was stronger than their courage. They fired from a distance, retreating step by step. Daniel was left standing closest, the wall between the hunters and the child. The grandmother cried out as a crack split the hut's side wall. One of the hunters had broken through, its claws tearing the metal apart. Daniel spun, firing a burst of shots, dropping it before it could step inside. But the boy's glow flared, bright as fire, filling the room with light. The hunters froze, their eyes widening. They had found what they came for. The boy's secret was no longer hidden. "No," the grandmother gasped, covering him with her frail body. Daniel stepped in front of them, his rifle nearly empty. "Over my dead body," he growled. The hunters advanced, weapons raised, their movements like shadows in flame. Daniel's breath slowed, his mind sharp. He had only seconds left of ammo, only seconds to decide. And in those seconds he knew one truth. He was not fighting for Earth Command anymore. He was not fighting for his uniform or his rank. He was fighting for a child's right to live. With a roar he charged forward, slamming into the nearest hunter, firing point blank. The blast lit the air, both Daniel and the hunter crashing to the ground. The boy's glow surged brighter, spilling across the hut like a beacon. And for the first time, Daniel wondered if the child's light was not a curse but a weapon. The storm had come, and the real battle for trust had only begun. The hut shook as the hunters roared, their red eyes burning brighter in the dark. Daniel pressed his back to the cracked wall, his rifle nearly empty, his chest rising and falling with heavy breaths. The grandmother held the boy close, her frail body shielding him even as his glow lit the small room like fire. The hunters circled, their weapons humming with deadly energy. One of them hissed in a strange tongue, its voice like metal scraping stone. "Give us the child, human, and we will let you live." Daniel spat blood to the ground, his voice sharp and unshaken. "Then you better kill me now because you're not getting him." The lead hunter snarled, raising its blade, but before it struck, the boy cried out, his small hands trembling. The glow under his skin flared so bright it forced even Daniel to squint. A wave of light burst outward, knocking the nearest hunter off its feet, its blade scattering sparks against the floor. The hunters froze, their cruel smiles fading into shock. The grandmother gasped, pulling the boy closer. "No, child, do not. They will see, they will take you." But it was too late. The light could not be hidden now. Daniel's eyes widened as he steadied himself against the wall. The glow was not just strange, it was power, raw and alive. The boy's body trembled as though the light was too much for him to hold, yet it poured out, pushing the hunters back step by step. One of the hunters shouted in anger, slamming its blade into the floor. The ground cracked, dust rising, the hut rattling on its weak frame. Daniel lifted his rifle, firing the last rounds into its chest. The bullets tore through the armor and the creature collapsed with a guttural cry, but his rifle clicked empty, the sound sharp like a death knell. Daniel gritted his teeth, tossing the useless weapon aside. He pulled the combat knife from his belt, his grip steady even as sweat rolled down his face. "You'll have to get through me with steel," he growled, stepping forward. The hunters advanced again, blades raised. But now the boy's light grew stronger, wrapping around Daniel like a faint shield. He felt its warmth on his skin, not burning but strengthening. For the first time, he believed this glow was not a curse but a gift. The hunters swung, blades slashing. Daniel ducked under one strike, driving his knife deep into the hunter's chest, the light from the boy flashing at the same time. The creature screamed, its body bursting into sparks before falling limp. The grandmother cried out in shock, her voice shaking. "You are fighting with him. With the boy." Daniel turned his head slightly, his eyes fierce. "He's not a weapon, he's a life, and I'll protect that life." The hunters faltered, the light forcing them to step back, their red eyes flickering with uncertainty. They had expected an easy kill, but the child's glow made the battlefield something else, something they had never faced before. Outside, human soldiers finally gathered, rifles raised, voices shouting orders, but they did not fire at the hunters. They aimed at the hut, at Daniel. "Sergeant Carter," a voice boomed from a loudspeaker. "This is Earth Command. Step away from the aliens. Surrender the child at once." Daniel's chest tightened, his knife dripping with hunter blood. The grandmother's eyes filled with terror. "They will kill us too," she whispered. Daniel shook his head, standing tall in the doorway, his voice sharp as steel. "No, they'll have to kill me first." The boy clung to his grandmother, his glow pulsing brighter as fear mixed with determination. Daniel glanced back at him, his voice softer now. "Trust me, little one. Trust me to stand." For a long moment, the hunters and the human soldiers both waited. Two enemies, two threats, one child at the center of it all, and Daniel, one man, standing between them. The hunters hissed again, preparing to strike. The human soldiers cocked their rifles, ready to fire. The grandmother whispered broken prayers, and then the boy screamed, the glow erupting like a sun. A shockwave burst outward, blinding, shaking the ground, throwing hunters back against the steel walls. The human soldiers staggered, their rifles clattering to the floor, alarms wailing as the colony lights flickered and died. In the center of it all, Daniel stood firm, the boy's glow wrapping around him like armor. He felt the power surge through his bones, not his own strength, but a shared one, a bond forged in trust. When the light faded, silence hung heavy over the ruins of the hut. The hunters were gone, their bodies shattered into dust. The human soldiers stood frozen, their faces pale, their eyes wide with fear at what they had witnessed. Daniel turned, his knife still in hand, his voice steady. "If you want him, you'll have to come through me too." No one moved, no one spoke, because in that moment it was clear. The boy was no longer just a secret, no longer just a burden. He was something greater. And Daniel, the human soldier who chose hope, had become his shield. The grandmother wept, pulling her grandson close, whispering into his hair, "You are not forbidden, child, you are chosen." And Daniel, though his body shook with exhaustion, knew the truth as well. The battle was not over. The war was only beginning. But the first bond of trust had been forged in fire, and nothing could break it. The colony lay in silence after the storm of light. The broken hut smoked with dust, the air thick with the smell of scorched metal. Hunters had been turned to ash, their bodies erased by the boy's glow, and the human soldiers stood frozen, too afraid to step closer, too shaken to fire their rifles. Daniel remained in front of the grandmother and the boy, his chest rising and falling with heavy breaths. Knife still in hand, though his strength was nearly gone, the boy clung to his grandmother, his glow dimming to a soft pulse. His small frame trembling from the force of what he had released, Daniel knelt before him, steadying his shoulders. "You did well, little one," he said. "You're safe. You're both safe." The commander of the human patrol stepped forward, his face pale, his voice shaking between fear and authority. "That thing is not safe," he barked, pointing at the boy. "He is a weapon. He must be taken into custody." The grandmother cried out, clutching the child tighter. "No, he is not a weapon. He is my grandson. He is only a child." Her voice cracked, her tears falling freely, but the soldiers did not soften. To them, anything unknown was a threat, and fear was stronger than compassion. Daniel rose to his feet, his eyes burning as he stepped between them again. "You're wrong," he said, firmly. "He's not a weapon, he's a life, and I'll protect that life." The commander's eyes narrowed. "Carter, you are disobeying direct orders. Step aside now, or you'll be treated as a traitor." Daniel clenched his fists, his voice steady, even as his heart thundered. "Then call me a traitor, but I won't step aside." The silence stretched, soldiers shifting uncomfortably, none daring to fire first. They had seen the light, they had felt its power, and deep inside they feared that killing the boy might bring down something even greater upon them. The boy looked up at Daniel, his eyes wide and shimmering. "Why?" he whispered. "Why do you choose us when they are your people?" Daniel crouched low again, his voice soft but unbreakable. "Because family isn't who looks like you, it's who you stand for, and I choose to stand for you." The grandmother sobbed quietly, her hand pressed to her chest. In her world, no one had ever chosen them. Before, no one had ever stood when the whole crowd walked away. Yet here was a human soldier, facing both his own kind and enemies beyond the gates. All for a starving child with forbidden light. The commander's hand trembled on his weapon, but he did not fire. He knew this was no ordinary fight, and Daniel's courage had already spread like wildfire through the ranks. One soldier lowered his rifle, then another, until half the patrol no longer pointed their weapons. Whispers rippled through them, voices hushed but clear. "Maybe he's right. Maybe the boy isn't danger. Maybe he's hope," the grandmother gasped, softly, her eyes wide as she listened. Hope. She had not heard that word in years, not since her world fell, not since hunger had been her only companion. Daniel straightened again, his voice rising over the silence. "You all saw what happened," he said. "That child saved this colony. His light destroyed the hunters when our guns couldn't, and you call him a weapon, but I call him the reason we're alive." The boy blinked, tears shining in his eyes. He stepped forward, holding Daniel's hand, his glow soft and steady now, no longer wild and out of control. For the first time, he was not hiding it, not ashamed of it. For the first time, he stood in the open. The commander lowered his weapon slowly, his voice heavy with defeat. "This isn't over, Carter," he muttered. "Command will hear of this." Daniel nodded, his grip tightening on the boy's hand. "Let them," he said. "I'll face them, but not alone." The soldiers slowly retreated, leaving the broken hut in uneasy silence. The grandmother collapsed to her knees, sobbing with relief, holding her grandson tight. Daniel knelt beside them, placing a firm hand on her shoulder. "It's over," he whispered. "For now." The boy looked up, his glow reflecting in Daniel's eyes. "You gave me food. You gave me hope, when even my own people gave me none," he said softly. "Why?" Daniel smiled faintly, though his eyes were tired. "Because once, someone told me hope is stronger than fear, and I believe it." The grandmother lifted her head, her face streaked with tears. "You have saved us, human soldier. You have given us more than bread. You have given us tomorrow." Daniel nodded, his voice low but certain. "And tomorrow is worth fighting for." As the night settled over the colony again, the boy's glow flickered gently like a lantern, not burning, not blinding, only steady. And in that glow, the grandmother finally saw something she thought was lost forever. Not hunger, not despair, but the fragile seed of a future. Daniel sat beside them, weary but unbroken. He had chosen love instead of orders, mercy instead of cruelty, hope instead of hunger. And in that choice, he had found not just a mission, but a family. The boy leaned against him, whispering softly, "Thank you, human." And Daniel smiled in the dim light, knowing the words were more powerful than any medal or rank he could ever earn. The story of one starving child and one stubborn soldier would not end here. It was only the beginning, but for now hope had won, and sometimes hope was enough.